Hi, I'm Father Jim Forson, and before I give a reflection on the gospel, I'd like to once again ask of you a favor. It would really be a help if you could, if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel by clicking on the button at the bottom. And it doesn't cost you anything. You won't be getting any texts or emails or anything like that. It just really is a great support to this ministry, and so if you could do that, I would be grateful. Thank you. So I'd like to also offer a reflection on the 29th Sunday, an ordinary time. You know, when people go to a ball game, nobody in the stands stands up and yells out, "We're number two!" I mean, nobody does that. Nobody wants to be number two. They want to be, we're number one, right? They want to be on the top. They want to be the ones who are the winners. I mean, think of it. The valedictorian is the one who gives the graduation speech, not the guy with a C- average. We want to excel. We want to be number one. Who brags about losing the Super Bowl? Nobody does. You want to win the Super Bowl. It's part of, I don't know, our DNA, just to strive and achieve. So it should not be too surprising, maybe a little startling, when we see that same quality within the apostles James and John in today's gospel. James and John say to Jesus, "We want you to do whatever we ask of you," which is startling alone in itself. And Jesus says, "What do you want?" And they say, "See to it when you come into your glory that we are seated one on your right, one on your left. We want to be next to the guy in power. We're the power with the power." And, that's so ambitious. And the other apostles are indignant with it. And an argument breaks out that they would be so crass and so bold. And Jesus does what Jesus always does. He turns everything upside down. And he says to the apostles, "It can't be this way with you. You know how it is with the Gentiles, how they love to lord their authority over others and make their importance felt." And I think we all can identify with that. I think we all have had occasions where somebody in authority has let us know that they were the ones in charge. Gosh, just this last week I was talking to a checker at Trader Joe's. And, I was just asking her if she liked her job, and she said, "Yeah, but not as much as my previous job. I made a lot more money doing that." And "What were you?" And she said she worked at a production company for making movies. And I said, "Well, what happened?" She goes, "Well, we got a new boss, and he came in, and I knew more than him. That threatened him, and so he fired me." And I just thought, how unfair, how wrong to use your authority like that. And Jesus says to his apostles, the one who is the master of all is the one who is the servant of all. And this is what he tells them. You have to sacrifice yourself for others. You have to serve others, become literally a slave for others. And he says to them then, can you drink from that cup that I drink from? Can you be that suffering servant? And that question that he asks them, he asks us. Can we be that suffering servant as he was? And when we look at Jesus in his life and his teachings, we see over and over and over again him being that servant of all. The story of the prodigal son who abandons his family and runs off and squanders his dad's fortune, and the father is so faithful in waiting for his son to return and then welcomes him and treats him like a son back in the family again, even though he will take abuse for that from the other son. But he suffers for the sake of his family. And Jesus uses examples of, if you go to a wedding, don't go clamoring for the places of honor. Just sit at the back of the table. Don't go promoting yourself. You to be a servant of all. As he was with the one woman, remember she was bleeding and She thought if I just touch his cloak, I'll be healed. And she did, and she was, and which was an unheard of thing because it ritually defiled Jesus to be touched by someone who was bleeding. But what was his response to her? He called her a daughter of Abraham, and he treated her with compassion and kindness. He would suffer for their sake. And the story of Lazarus, the poor beggar, and the rich man. Which one went to heaven and which one went to hell? Or remember the story of the tax collector and the Pharisee in the temple? Do you remember which one's prayers were heard by God and which ones were not? Story after story after story of those who suffer for the sake of others, those who are humble in their spirits, those who are servants. They're the ones who inherit the kingdom. They're the ones who will be triumphant. So, Jesus asks us what he asked his apostles. Can you drink from that cup that I drink of? Can you drink of that cup that is labeled suffering servant, sacrificial servant? Well, I guess my answer is there's been a lot of people in my life who have sacrificed themselves for me and who have drunk from that cup. I think about my mom and dad, how they sacrificed for myself and my sisters. They drank from that cup. I remember when I was in the high school seminary, and I was going through a rough time, and I was thinking about just leaving the seminary altogether. And this one priest noticed me, and he kind of sat down with me and just kind of talked with me and kind of walked me through it and lifted up my heart and made me feel like $1,000,000. I'll never forget Father Walsh. He was such a good man, and he gave me all that time of his. He was a servant to me. And gosh, I think when I was going through my health problems, so many people in the parish were praying for me and supporting me. I think of Tony and Donna. My sisters, they all were giving me so much support. They were all like servants to me, and they all drank from that cup. And during the pandemic, when things were so uncertain and frightening, gosh, so many people poured out their lives for me. Father Tim did, and Kathy and Michael and Amy and Juan Carlos, everybody did. I was blessed by how much sacrifice they all gave for me. And so if all of these people drank from that cup and were sacrificial servants for my sake, who am I not to do the same? And how can I not do that? So when Jesus asked his apostles, can you drink from this cup? They rather braggadociously said, oh, we can, without really knowing what they were saying yes to. But now we know what we're saying yes to. And Jesus asks us, can you drink from this cup? Can you be that suffering servant for the sake of others? And our answer, my answer, how can I not drink from that cup? How can I not be a servant to those who were servants to me?